Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss video game soundtracks. So this covers not just, OSTs, but also songs that are, kind of pop culture songs that are kind of incorporated into games. Obviously this does not include, like Just Dance or just like, here's just a song, or even Guitar Hero doesn't really count. These are, of course, there are songs that are just like, hey, here's a song, we picked it, and it's implemented into the game. Of course, those games are like, hey, the songs are the games for those, but you have something like Guardians of the Galaxy, excessively underrated. Please buy that game. It probably won't, cause it to have a sequel at this point, but still buy the game because it's absolutely amazing. But much like how they did the movies, they were like, okay, well, that's a popular trait from the films, and they actually implemented that into the game where it's like, hey, as long as you're not having it on streamer mode, you can just have all of this licensed music. Like, they have all sorts of great songs in that game, which I think are absolutely amazing. And of course, you probably won't hear any of those if you watch somebody else play it, because most people are trying to make money, so they're like, yeah, I'm gonna have it on streamer mode. But if you don't have the game and you haven't experienced the game with the licensed soundtrack, I highly recommend it. Same goes for Hi-Fi Rush. Exact same situation. Like, the music is a part of it, but it's not just like Guitar Hero or Just Dance where it's like, hey, here's the songs are the game. You either dance to the songs or you flick some fake buttons and pretend that you know how to play an instrument to some really great music. They're implemented into the game, but it's not the main focus. And once again, Hi-Fi Rush also has streamer mode where it's like, hey, you can't use those songs, but here's our original soundtrack, and then you just play it that way. So I think that's really cool that games have that. And this is a crazy one, but I will be touching on other Remedy games, but Control actually has a streamer mode, and it's for like literally one song in the whole game, and it's the one that like plays on the little radio, and it's actually like a licensed song. I have no idea why they picked that song, and it's just like the only one that they have, but everything else is original for Control, including the other songs that have lyrics. Although I do believe there is, I think, a Dark Discontent is officially a Poets of the Fall song, and it's not an Old Gods of Asgard song. So I don't know where the legality goes for that, even though it's very clear that song, it's under Poets of the Fall, but it was obviously made for Control, and they did the same thing with like it's Poets of the Fall. They made a song called War, and it was in Alan Wake. I don't know if I missed it in the remake, because I was looking for it and I didn't hear it, and it's a part where it plays on the radio, and they're like, it's the new hit single from Poets of the Fall, which Poets of the Fall, for anyone who is unaware of who that is, they are a Finnish band, and Remedy works with them for like most of their games. They started back in like Max Payne 2 days, where they used A Late Goodbye, which is a Poets of the Fall song, and then when they ended up making Alan Wake, they got them to be the Old Gods of Asgard. So I'm sure everyone's heard the song, for Alan Wake 2 and stuff, the Old Gods of Asgard, and the entire concert that they put on, which was basically like 5 songs in one. That is the Old Gods of Asgard for the game, and the actual band that does all that music, they're Poets of the Fall. So check them out, of course, because I love them. I love all things Remedy, but they hire them on as this its own band within the universe. So they make original music for a lot of Remedy games, and it's actual like it has lyrics and stuff, and it's a part of the OST. Like, that's something that you don't get too often in a lot of games, where you'll have the actual original soundtrack, and then you'll still have a buttload of songs, especially for Alan Wake 2. I think for Alan Wake 1, you'll get the Old Gods of Asgard songs, which would be Poet and the Muse, Children of the Elder God, and was it just those 2 for the first game? I think it's just those 2 for the first game, actually. And then their third one was in Alan Wake's American Nightmare. And then, so on and so forth through Control, and now Alan Wake 2. But for Alan Wake 2, they got a ton of different artists to specifically make songs for the actual game. And so if you get the original soundtrack, and I could be wrong about this, I have to wait for my vinyls to come in. I'm still waiting on those. But I would assume, because they actually hired the bands to make the song specifically for the game, that counts as a part of the original soundtrack. Like, there's the Night Spring songs for the DLC, which is like a poppy song that has references to, of course, Night Springs and stuff like that. And then once again, you have Poets of the Fall as the Old Gods of Asgard making new music for this one, and then they have all their old songs from Alan Wake 1 in the second game as well. And it's fantastic. I love all those songs. Rock is actually like my favorite genre of music, so I'm super hyped whenever they have like a new Old Gods of Asgard song, because they go really crazy with that music. And of course, the concert was like a huge thing from Alan Wake 2 when that came out, which just was a nice happy moment because I already loved Alan Wake for 13 effing years. So it was great for me to be like, man, I've been waiting for this sequel for so long, and then everybody was like, this is crazy, but they put a concert in a video game, and it was just like a crazy. Even at the Game Awards, they got to perform, and it was like, that's awesome. So I was super happy about that, and I already loved their music in general. So it was nice to have like a full-on concert. Technically, it was the second one because if you play Alan Wake 1, the first song you hear is really during a crazy concert moment. So I love everything they do with that, and I like the fact that their original soundtrack music includes songs that actually have lyrics, because you don't get that very often. And if you do, like if we jump over to like Final Fantasy, I know they say Sephiroth in his song. Other than that, I have no idea what words they're throwing out there. It's like Star Wars music sometimes. It's like, are they saying real words or are they just making noises? I genuinely don't know 100%, but it sounds nice. It's Final Fantasy. It has some nice songs. I'm not super attached to Final Fantasy, so for me personally, I have like the battle theme, and I'll be honest, that's pretty much it for me. I've never even beaten a Final Fantasy game. I've played a couple like here and there, and I played the original 7 more than any of the others, but even that was back when 7 was the most recent Final Fantasy game, and I never beat it because it was my uncle's. So I know that they have so much great music, historically speaking, from that franchise, that they have Final Fantasy symphonies going on. So I know that the music's great. I'm just not really attached to it because I'm not that attached to the franchise. But I know it's out there. I know it's huge. And I know the music, of course, is good. If I had to pick a franchise that I really enjoy outside of, the Remedyverse and Alan Wake and stuff, I would definitely go Sonic over the generations. It's had some great music. Also, they have a couple songs in there, lyrical. So that's fantastic. Of course, if you saw Sonic 3, Live and Learn was going crazy. My daughter's even listening to that now because I started listening to it again after seeing the movie, and she likes the song. So we listen to Live and Learn in the car now. So Live and Learn, of course, it's just there. And then you can have Shadow's theme, I Am All of Me. Like it's just good. Like they got lyrics, and then of course if you want to go kind of old school with it, which I guess technically at this point both those songs are old school too, now that I think about it. If it's on GameCube, I think we gotta admit that's old school at this point. But even older old school, 16-bit era and all that good stuff, classic Sonic music I love. Chemical Plant Zone is like my number one Sonic song, which I'm still waiting for that to pop up in the movies, which I think it's going to be in 4. I think it's locked in. I think Sonic 4 is going to have Chemical Plant Zone. I think based on how the story can unfold, it just makes sense. I'm really hoping we get Chemical Plant Zone in this next movie, because that's the one I've been waiting for. And I've just been like, okay, Live and Learn was great. Live and Learn was fantastic. But I need my song. I need Chemical Plant Zone to pop up. But I've loved Sonic music over the years. I'll admit I probably would say I've stopped at Sonic Mania. I haven't even thought, if I'm being totally honest, to listen to like some of the newer tracks and stuff. So I normally only listen to it if I play the newest game, and I just haven't really checked on like Frontiers and the other couple games that have come out. Not counting Sonic Generations, because I had the original version of that, so I have heard those songs. Although I do know that there's some new stuff in there. So when I eventually get the remake of that, I'll hear. I would assume, hopefully, I would assume Shadow's theme is actually in that game as well. Maybe even a remix of that. But I've always enjoyed the Sonic music. I always like Mario music. I always think they have some good stuff. I would definitely say I would choose Sonic music consistently. I would give like 9s and 10s out of 10s compared to Mario music. Which also, and this might even sound a little weird, I feel like Sonic music, and maybe it's just because Sonic was always like real cool and 90s and stuff, it's very hip-hop style, and like the beats and stuff are definitely kind of hip-hop based from time to time. So I think when I listen to Sonic music, I find it like I said, it's gonna sound weird, but I feel like it's more of a song that I could just listen to versus Mario songs where it's like, yeah, that feels like a video game song. And I don't know if that makes sense unless you just understand what I mean, because I feel like there's no other way to explain it. But it's just the way it sounds is like, yeah, that's a video game song. Not that takes away from it in any way, shape, or form, of course. But outside of that, I just feel like, yeah, I like the songs. I have my couple. If I had to pick like one game, I'd probably go Super Mario World as like the one where I have like the most attachment to as far as songs. At least the ones that I really like. Like, of course, I know the songs from Mario 1, but outside of like the original main theme, this, like I recognize the underground, World 2 theme and stuff like that, or World 1, 2, or whatever. But it's like, yeah, those are classics, but I'm not like, oh man, I gotta listen to that world, that one too. Like, I really gotta hear it. It's like, I know it, but I'm not like drawn to it or anything. But there have been modern songs that I definitely enjoy. Super Mario 3D Worlds had a song, and it was definitely like a melody type of song, and it was just like a piano. I think it was just piano. I can't even recall the instruments. It's been a minute since I even listened to it, but I really like that song, and I didn't even beat that game, so I'm sure there's other songs in there that I would enjoy. I do love Jump Up Superstar for Mario Odyssey. I do have that on my phone, even though I do not have that game. I like that song, so that's definitely a good song. So I've heard some pseudo recent stuff, if you want to call it that, but I haven't played the last couple games that have come out, whether it's remakes or like newer releases with Wonder. So it's been a minute since I've like just sat down and listened to some of the newer Mario tracks, but it's always been more Sonic for me as far as like consistent songs. And then if we're going, since we're already in that era of Super Nintendo, Genesis, and all that stuff, if I'm gonna pick like, and this is like one game, not even a franchise, so I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So if you had to pick like a franchise that was your consistent like 10 out of 10 every time, I would love to know that. But if you had to pick one game, what would it be? Because for me, if I'm going just track for track 10 out of 10 every effing time, I'm going Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo. I love that. First off, it's my favorite Super Nintendo game. Love the Turtles. But every one of those songs, kind of akin to Sonic, where it's just the way the music is played, just the beats and everything like that, I feel like I can just listen to them as just straight up songs, more so than Mario music. But 10 out of 10. I have the vinyl record for that game. Like, I was like, I love like every single song. There's some where it's like less than others, of course. You have like your favorites and stuff. But if I'm going like just one game, one soundtrack, I would hit it with Turtles in Time. I'm sure that there are a million other games where if I listen to the full soundtrack, I'm gonna be like, okay, there's some competition there for sure. But when I'm just like, I like every single one, Turtles in Time. Like, even for Sonic games where it's like, I'll like maybe 3 of the songs, I like 3 or 4, but then it'll be like the other half, I'm just like, and there's definitely a lot of Sonic songs that I do like, but like I said, this is specifically going in terms of not the franchise, just like one game in particular. And obviously if I had to pick for Sonic, it would, and actually I cheat and I would make it Sonic Generations. That's a huge cheat, but that's what I would do. But it would be Sonic 2 otherwise, just because Chemical Plant Zone is my favorite, and then I like some of the other songs that are already in there. But if I'm picking one game, all 10s, I'm giving it to Turtles in Time. So that's my personal opinion, obviously. I would love to know your thoughts on that, but I love the Turtles in Time music. Absolutely amazing. Like, I can listen to that day in and day out. Like, I love the Turtles in Time soundtrack. Like I said, I bought the vinyl and stuff for it. So that's definitely the one where I'm like, if I had to pick one game, that would be the one. But there's so many, obviously soundtracks out there where it's either just soundtrack, including licensed music, original soundtracks. It's so fascinating going through and having different tracks that you can pull from in different franchises and stuff. And then you have the weird legalities of it all. And it's just like with movies where it's like, it's one of the funny things where you might not realize it if you're first getting into like even buying music, where you're like, oh man, I love this song from the movie. And then you buy like the original soundtrack and it's like, you just hear like, notes from pianos and stuff like that. It's like, where's all these songs? And it's like, well, that was a licensed soundtrack. That's like the, the movie soundtrack, but you go like original soundtrack is a different story. And it's the same with video games. And one of the weird things is, and this is something I actually learned from one of my buddies, we were talking about Metal Gear one day, and he mentioned that the kind of intro to Metal Gear 1 where they, we're just like do 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 like that do do do. That song is not on the soundtrack, or at least that intro to like the music is not on the soundtrack. And I thought that was so interesting when he told me that, and I was like, I wonder if it's a weird license due to the actual, since it's actually people, and it's just a really weird thing that's connected to that. Because I always would have thought, well, that's like a part of the song. That's how I feel about it. I always thought that was the intro to the actual like first song that you hear, obviously when the game kicks up, and then it fades into that song. I thought that was like the intro to that song, and then it fades into like the instruments. And apparently that's not the case. It's just like its own separate individual thing where they just make some boop noises and they're like, okay, and then that's it. So for whatever reason, that wasn't a part of like the official soundtrack. And when he told me that, I was like, that's crazy. Like, how is that not? That's like the end. That's literally the first sound you hear when you kick up the first Metal Gear Solid game. And that's one of my favorite things. It has like this weird ominous tone to it, but also it sounds good. And it's just like, it was crazy when he told me that. I was like, wow, that's so weird that that's not on the soundtrack. That is the craziest thing in the world. And I don't know if it was a weird licensing thing, maybe from where he heard it, because I don't think it was the vinyl, but it was, you know, wherever he heard it, and he said it wasn't on there. And I was like, that's really weird to me. So, you know, music licenses and the weird legalities around stuff like that is so odd. And another example I have, and this isn't really a part of the song, and I think it was on me for really hoping for this moment to even happen. And it, you know, looking back on it, it's like, it makes sense that it wouldn't be there. But I bought like a deluxe vinyl soundtrack for like the first 8 Mega Man games, or it's like the first 10, like 1 through 10. It's like the classic looking ones. It might even be 1 through 12. I honestly don't remember. But I bought that, and the first thing I wanted to do was go to Mega Man 8, because Mega Man 8 was actually the first Mega Man game I ever played. And so when I turned it on, I was hoping to hear like the random woman say like Mega Man 8, and then the song starts, and it's like, well, that's not on there. It's just like the music kicks in and then that's it. But I'm like, oh, I guess it kind of makes sense. And I think they even show in there like, yeah, it's not in there because it's technically a vocal, so they did not put that in, and it's only on the start screen technically. So it's like, it makes sense that it's not a part of the actual song. But when it's the start screen, and that's how, you know, obviously I played that game for who knows how long before I ever even got other Mega Man games. And it was like, well, in my head, much like the Metal Gear Solid thing, in my brain, it's like this woman randomly saying Mega Man 8, and then the music kicks up. That's a part of the song, but it's not. It's just the intro to it. And so when I had that on the record, it was like just having a piece missing, and I was just like, that was like the first thing I wanted to hear was this woman go Mega Man 8, and then the music kicks in, and then the music just started, which is a great intro song. I like the intro to Mega Man 8, but I was definitely like, ooh, this kind of rubs my brain the wrong way that I didn't get to hear like that woman's voice. And I just find that to be like a funny little thing when it comes to music and, you know, soundtracks, especially when it comes to vocals and stuff like that. Like I said, you know, combining that with the Mega Man, the Metal Gear Solid thing, it's just so interesting. Like the little things where you're like, how is that not a part of the song? And the Metal Gear thing, I just don't understand. Like, I don't like. Clearly, it has to do something. It has to be in some way, shape, or form related to the people actually making those noises, which I guess I never really thought. I just assumed they were some noises that they just made up, but I don't know. I'd have to look into that, or you can look into it yourself, because I'm not going to add that to this video, I'll be honest with you. But the Mega Man thing was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. It's not really a part of the song, but it still is just like, when it's a part of the intro, it feels like that's a part of the song, especially when, you know, you play the game so long. If somebody says the name of the game and then the song starts, I'm sorry, but that's a part of the song now. That's just how it works. That's how it goes. You know, it's just like how the first time you hear a song in a certain way, it's like, I'm sorry, that's just how I like it more, you know. So that's just how it is. But still love all the music, of course. Mega Man is another franchise that is an easy staple when it comes to just consistently great music. So Mega Man's, of course, a fantastic example. Fighting games are definitely a great example too. I did buy the vinyl for, and this was more for nostalgia purposes, but I bought the vinyl for Tekken 1, and that was just like pure nostalgia reasons. But Tekken definitely has some great music. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was that free Tekken game they made for PS3, and that had a really great soundtrack. Like the character select theme for that, I think it is my favorite character select theme that they've ever had in a Tekken game. Like I love that soundtrack for that one. And there's another song, I think it's one of the levels from that as well, and I thought that was a really great song too. I have both those on my phone actually. And then of course, you know what I'm saying when it comes to Tekken 8. Like it's gonna be Victor's theme. They have some good songs in there, but when Victor's theme came out and that trailer came out, I was like, bro, this is God tier. That is without a doubt, that's got to be the best song in the game. I don't think one can top that, because that song was absolutely ridiculous. So I love Victor's theme, because that's absolutely crazy. I almost said Final Fantasy. I meant to say Street Fighter. Street Fighter 6 also has some good music as well. I wish I could remember the theme, and I forgot what level. It's like a French song. Like the level is either a French level or the name of the song is in French. That song I actually enjoy a lot as well. But, you know, Mortal Kombat, of course, has had some good music. They have, you know, Skrillex did like a couple of songs for, was it Mortal Kombat X? Or maybe it was 9 when they like did the reboot. It may have been 9. But I remember they had like a couple of songs where it was like, hey, Skrillex is like doing the soundtrack for a couple of characters, and they have like, I think I still have Goro's theme on my phone right now. But there's so many franchises with so many different songs. Just to do what I always do in some way, shape, or form. If I'm talking video games, somehow I'm gonna reference Resident Evil, of course, my favorite franchise. But of course, I love the save room themes. For me personally, there's actually not a ton of music when I listen to Resident Evil where I'm like, oh, I really want to listen to like this location, unless it's Resident Evil 2. It doesn't have it's oddly enough, it's one of my least favorite save room themes, but it has, once again, if we're going like one game, that's the one that I think out of all Resident Evil games has the best soundtrack overall, because I feel like 2 has the most memorable soundtrack, like either entering the RPD or in different sections of the RPD. If we're going with the most famous song, or infamous, if you like, it would probably be, of course, the basement theme in I guess it was the first version of the director's cut, or however it was done. I can't remember, because I have the director's cut where they fixed it and they put the old music back in. So it was like the first version of the director's cut where they swapped all the music out and they have that horrible basement thing, which I'm sure you've heard. You might not even have known that it was from Resident Evil, but I'm sure you've heard it. And it's absolutely insane. And what's even crazier is the story behind that, where the composer was a deaf guy, but he was not deaf. And that was found out like years later. I highly recommend looking into that. Insane story. Absolutely ridiculous, but just wild. Just wild stuff there. But I do, of course, love the save room themes from the Resident Evil games. Code Veronica being my favorite one. I think, once again, going back to kind of that Mario Sonic thing where it's like, I feel like Sonic songs just feel like actual songs. That's how I feel about the Code Veronica theme, where I feel like it just feels longer, and it feels like it has more changes compared to the other themes, the other save room themes, and it feels like it's more of a song compared to the other save room themes, which of course I still love. And oddly enough, one of my favorite songs in all of Resident Evil, of course, is Moonlight Sonata. That's how I was introduced to that. I love that song. It is, I'm pretty sure, the only licensed song. Well, I mean, I don't know how you would qualify that as, if we go licensed, but widely known song, I guess, public song that's used in the franchise. I could be mistaken, and of course that's not counting like in themes or anything like that, although I think most of those are custom as well. But Moonlight Sonata, of course, was like the one, and that was how I was introduced to it. But love those games. I do have the soundtrack for like almost every Resident Evil game, even though I barely listen to them. I just love Resident Evil like that. And like the first 3 games, I would say definitely have more of the themes that I listen to for sure, and also Code Veronica. So you can say first 4, depending on how you look at it, because obviously there's multiple Resident Evil games. But the more recent stuff, and that was a huge thing, of course, when the remake for 2 even came out. That was a huge thing where it was like, yeah, there's like no music unless you bought like the deluxe edition or paid to have the old music put into the game. And it's like, man, they do like not like there's like no music whatsoever in 2, at least that you can hear. It's almost like a deadly silent game. It's very odd. And then they kind of fixed that in 3, where it's like, hey, here's the actual music that we made. You can listen to it if you like. You can hear the songs. So they fixed that in 3, although I wish they fixed way more in the remake of 3. But that's a different topic. I won't get into that right now. But I just wanted to do this video, talk about music in games, whether it's licensed songs or original songs, especially when it comes to games that have original songs with lyrics in them. I still feel like that's such an insane rarity that as of now it's mostly just Remedy that's even really doing it. And most other games, if they make original songs, it's just like, hey, we have some themes and some instruments and stuff, and every once in a while you'll get some lyrics. And once again, I have to specify, not just chanting lyrics like the Sephiroth stuff, although it's great for memes, I do love that, but just lyrics where it's just somebody just singing a song or rapping a song or whatever, and you can just hear them. You don't have to speculate, are they saying words or not? So I want to specify that. I know there are a bunch of songs where there's chanting and stuff, but I feel like there's way less songs where it's just normal lyrics that you can just naturally understand if you listen to the song. But gotta love those video game soundtracks as a whole. I feel like it's always interesting listening to video game music and being like, this music could totally be on the radio. And I don't know why we don't have like a video game radio station somewhere in the world. I'm sure there's one somewhere, but I thought that probably like 10 years ago, I remember thinking like, man, more than that even, there could easily be like a video game radio station where they play video game soundtracks. 100%. We have literal decades of fantastic music. We could easily have that, but we just don't. And that's really unfortunate. Not that, who the F is listening to the radio? It's like newspaper these days. But we could have it. It would still be cool. You could honestly throw most of the, honestly, any of the old Gods of Asgard songs, you wouldn't even know that was made for a video game. It's literally just like, it's just an amazing rock music. You'd have no idea. I could play that on the riff right now. That's a Detroit radio station. I just threw that out there like everybody's going to know the riff. But that's our local rock radio station. But you could throw some old Gods of Asgard on the riff. No one would be able to tell. It would just sound like a new rock song came out. Like, that's it. It's just music. It's just music. Most video game music, of course, without the lyrics and stuff, it'd be like, okay, it has its, kind of set place where it can't really blend in as much. But we got some songs out there that easily could. Obviously, once again, you got a couple of those Sonic songs. They could fit in there. I don't know about Shadow's theme. That might have maybe a little while back when the song came out. Probably could have thrown that on the radio. It might make it now. Possible. I don't know if we're in that era as much anymore, especially that song for sure. But just like I said, wanted to talk about video game music because it's definitely great. It's definitely the bulk of my listening music is either video game music or probably like classic rock music. But for sure, video games number one is like percentage wise, and then under that, some form of rock, whether it's from Japan or from the States, and obviously K-pop was in there for a giant chunk of time, but video games 100%. Most of my vinyl, pretty much all my vinyl, are video game soundtracks. Like when I collect vinyl, I'm collecting video game songs. I have like the vinyl soundtrack for all the Uncharted games, which I love the main Uncharted theme. Maybe we can get a remake of that, just saying, throwing that out there. I know what they got going on. They love the remaster, they love the remakes. Just hit me with that Uncharted one, I'll be happy. I just thought of this. I have an Uncharted figure. This will mean nothing unless you collect 1/6 scale figures. But look up the Lim Toys Nathan Drake. If you don't collect figures, just look that up. Lim Toys, Limtoys, Nathan Drake. I just got that figure finally delivered to me. I am effing excited to open that bad boy up. And trust me, when you see it, you'll understand why I'm so excited, especially because I love the franchise so much. I cannot wait. I just remember it. I've been out all effing day. I just remember that. So I'm going to end this, and I'm going to think about getting home, because I only got a little bit more to go. Plus, there's not much else to say. I would love to know your favorite soundtracks. Like I said early on, if there's just one game where you're like, this 10 out of 10 from start to finish, what is that game? What is that soundtrack? And then, of course, if you're picking a full franchise, what is like your number one franchise where it's like, this is the one that I would pick above all the others? I can easily understand if Final Fantasy hits for a lot of people because it's Final Fantasy, and if you like orchestral music and stuff, that's the place to go. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts on all things video game soundtracks, original soundtracks, like some of your favorite games that do use licensed music, which obviously the two in my head are, once again, Guardians and Hi-Fi Rush. But we'd love to know your thoughts on all that stuff. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.